The apartment door clicked shut, the sound barely registering over the patter of water droplets hitting tile. Liam ran a hand through his damp hair, exhaustion settling deep in his bones. The day had been long, and all he wanted was to grab a beer and crash on the couch. But the second he turned the corner into the hallway, everything shifted. Shit. Mia's voice was barely above a whisper, but it slammed into him like a punch to the chest. She stood frozen in the dim light, wrapped in nothing but a towel, her wet hair dripping onto her bare shoulders. A single drop trailed down the curve of her neck, disappearing beneath the white cotton. Liam's brain short-circuited. His first instinct was to turn away, to mutter an apology and pretend like this never happened. But his feet wouldn't move. His pulse kicked up, hammering in his ears, drowning out all rational thought. Mia clutched the towel tighter around herself, her knuckles white. "You're back early," she murmured, her voice strained. "Yeah." Liam forced out, his throat dry. Shift ended sooner than expected. A silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. This wasn't the first time he'd seen her in something revealing. She often lounged around in tiny shorts and tank tops. But this was different. The air between them felt charged, as if years of buried tension had suddenly cracked open, raw and exposed. Mia shifted on her feet, looking everywhere but at him. I should get dressed." Liam swallowed hard. "Yeah, good idea." Still, neither of them moved. Her breathing was uneven, her chest rising and falling beneath the thin fabric. The towel wasn't even that short, it ended mid-thigh, but knowing there was nothing underneath it? That thought alone was enough to unravel him. Mia must have realized it too, because she suddenly backed toward her bedroom, her movements stiff. "Forget this happened," she mumbled. Liam nodded, though he knew there was no chance in hell he could. The door shut softly behind her, leaving him standing in the hallway, staring at nothing. He exhaled, raking a hand down his face. Fuck. This was bad. Because the moment he saw her like that, something inside him snapped. And now there was no going back. Liam avoided Mia for the next few days. Not intentionally, at least that's what he told himself. But somehow, his schedule conveniently kept him out of the apartment when she was home. It wasn't like he hadn't been attracted to her before. She was gorgeous, always had been, but they were friends. Roommates. There had been an unspoken rule between them. Don't cross the line. But now that line felt thinner. Almost non-existent. And, the worst part? He was pretty sure she felt it too. The proof came one evening when he walked into the kitchen and found her at the stove, cooking. She was dressed in one of his old hoodies, sleeves pushed up, hair tied into a messy bun. Nothing out of the ordinary, except for the way she stiffened when she saw him. Liam hesitated, debating if he should just grab a beer and retreat to his room. Instead, he forced himself to act normal, leaning against the counter. "Making dinner?" he asked, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. Mia nodded, stirring the pot. "Yeah. Thought you weren't coming home early again." "I live here, Mia," he said dryly. She shot him a look, but there was no real bite to it. If anything, she looked flustered. He noticed the way her hands trembled slightly when she reached for the salt, the way she kept glancing at him from the corner of her eye. He wasn't the only one affected. That realization sent a thrill down his spine, but he pushed it aside. This was dangerous territory, and he knew it. They ate dinner like usual, but the tension hung between them like a ticking time bomb. Every brush of their hands, every lingering glance, every moment of silence, it all felt loaded with something unspoken. Liam had no idea how long they could keep pretending, but he was pretty damn sure they were running out of time. The clinking of silverware against ceramic was the only sound filling the apartment. Liam tried to focus on his food, but every movement from Mia pulled his attention like a magnet. He caught her sneaking a glance at him, but the second their eyes met, she looked away, stabbing at her pasta a little too aggressively. Liam sighed, setting his fork down. "Mia, are we going to talk about it?" Her grip on the fork tightened. "Talk about what?" "You know what." She exhaled sharply, poking at her food. "There's nothing to talk about, Liam. It was just bad timing." "Right," he said, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed. Bad timing. That's what we're calling it. Mia rolled her eyes, but her posture was stiff.
Yes.
What else would it be? He tilted his head, watching her. I don't know. Maybe the fact that we've been pretending there's nothing between us for years? Mia's fork clattered against the plate. Her eyes snapped up, wide with something between surprise and frustration. That's not. She stopped herself, pressing her lips together. Liam arched a brow. Not what? She shook her head, standing abruptly. I'm done with this conversation. He grabbed her wrist before she could leave. The moment his fingers wrapped around her skin, she froze. The air between them tightened, thick with something electric. Liam's voice was low when he spoke. Tell me you don't feel it, Mia. She didn't pull away, didn't move. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed, her eyes darting to the side. Liam. Tell me, he pressed, his voice rough. Mia's chest rose and fell, her breath shaky. It doesn't matter, she whispered. It matters to me. She finally looked at him then, and for a split second, he saw it. The longing, the hesitation, the fear. Mia inhaled sharply, stepping back and breaking his hold.
We can't, Liam.
We just can't. Why not? Because we live together, she blurted out, frustration spilling over. Because it'll ruin everything. Liam let out a humorless chuckle. Mia, everything's already changed. You think ignoring it is going to make it go away. She ran a hand through her hair, clearly exasperated. I don't know, okay? She exhaled, shaking her head. I don't want to lose you. His chest tightened at her words. Mia, he said, softer this time. You won't. She looked at him like she wanted to believe it, but fear still lingered in her eyes. Liam, I need time. He nodded, even though patience was the last thing he wanted right now. Okay. Mia hesitated for a moment before walking past him, disappearing into her room. Liam let out a slow breath, running a hand through his hair. This wasn't over. Not even close. For the next few days, they tried to act normal. They avoided being in the same room for too long. They kept conversations short. They pretended nothing had changed. But everything had. The tension between them was unbearable, a constant undercurrent pulling them closer despite their efforts to resist. Every accidental touch burned. Every stolen glance lingered too long. It was only a matter of time before one of them snapped. And that moment came late one night. Liam had been lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. His mind was a mess of thoughts, of her. Then, a soft knock at his door. He sat up instantly. Yeah. The door creaked open, revealing Mia standing there, wrapped in one of his hoodies, her bare legs peeking out beneath the oversized fabric.
His throat went dry.
Mia? His voice was low, uncertain. She hesitated, fingers gripping the hem of the hoodie. I can't stop thinking about it, she admitted, barely above a whisper. Liam swallowed hard. Thinking about what? She took a shaky breath. You know what? Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then, she stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Liam's pulse pounded as she moved closer, her expression conflicted yet determined. Tell me to leave, she whispered. Tell me this is a bad idea. He should. He really, really should. But instead, he reached out, his fingers grazing her wrist, pulling her closer until she was standing between his legs. I can't, he admitted, his voice rough. Mia let out a shaky breath. Liam. That was all it took. He surged forward, capturing her lips in a desperate, searing kiss. She gasped against his mouth, but she didn't pull away. She melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair as he pulled her onto his lap. Years of suppressed emotions erupted in that moment. Liam's hands slid beneath the hoodie, gripping her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space between them. Mia whimpered, arching against him, her body fitting perfectly against his. This is insane, she breathed, her forehead resting against his. Liam chuckled against her lips. Yeah. Tell me we're not gonna regret this, she murmured, her fingers tracing his jaw. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing over her lips. The only thing I'd regret is not doing this sooner. Mia's breath hitched. Then, she kissed him again, harder this time, as if letting go of all her fears, all her hesitation. Clothes were lost between whispers and gasps. Touches turned urgent, exploring, memorizing. Every inch of her skin against his sent fire through his veins. And when they finally gave in completely, it wasn't just about the physical. It was years of tension unraveling. Years of pretending, finally coming undone. And, in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the risks. Not the consequences. Just them. Mia stirred, the warmth of the sheets wrapping around her like a cocoon. A slow, satisfied hum escaped her lips as she shifted, her bare skin brushing against something solid. Something warm. Her eyes fluttered open. Liam. His arm was draped over her waist, his face relaxed in sleep, his chest rising and falling steadily. The sight made something tighten deep in her stomach. She swallowed hard. Last night hadn't been a dream. They had crossed the line, shattered it really.
And now?
Now, she had no idea what came next. Her heart pounded as she carefully tried to slip out of bed, but the second she moved, Liam stirred.
Mia?
His voice was thick with sleep, husky and low. She froze. He blinked at her, his sleepy gaze soft and warm, a lazy smirk tugging at his lips. "Where do you think you're going?" Her breath hitched as his fingers brushed over her bare hip, his touch igniting the embers of last night all over again. She hesitated, pulling the sheet up to her chest, suddenly feeling exposed, not just physically, but emotionally. "I should go. Before things get weird." Liam frowned, propping himself up on one elbow. "Things already got weird, Mia." She bit her lip, looking anywhere but at him.
Exactly.
"Which is why we should." Before she could finish, Liam reached out, gently pulling her back down beside him. "Stop running," he murmured, his fingers tilting her chin up so she had no choice but to meet his gaze. Her heart hammered. "Liam, what happened last night wasn't just a mistake," he said firmly. "You know that."
She did. God, she did.
But knowing it and accepting it were two different things. She sighed, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the sheets. "I don't know how to do this. What if we screw it up?" Liam studied her for a long moment before shifting closer, pressing a slow, lingering kiss to her shoulder. "Then we figure it out," he murmured against her skin. Her eyes fluttered shut. It would be so easy to stay. To let herself believe that this could work. That they wouldn't crash and burn. And maybe she wanted to try. Mia exhaled, finally looking at him. "Okay." Liam's lips curved into a smile before he pulled her into another kiss, one that promised this was only the beginning. The morning after should have been awkward. Should have been filled with regret, hesitation, or even an attempt to take it all back. But it wasn't. At least, not at first. Mia stayed wrapped in Liam's arms longer than she should have, savoring the warmth of his skin against hers. His steady breathing, the way his fingers traced absent-minded circles on her back, it all felt so natural, like this was how it was always meant to be. But reality came crashing back too quickly. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it, squinting at the screen. Amber, work.
Shit.
She sat up abruptly, clutching the sheet to her chest. "What time is it?" Liam groaned, burying his face in the pillow. "Too early for you to panic." Mia shoved at his shoulder. "Liam, I have a meeting in an hour." His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her back down. "Call in sick." She shot him a glare, even as her body betrayed her, by melting into his hold. "That is not how the real world works." Liam smirked against her shoulder. "Then the real world sucks." Mia rolled her eyes, reluctantly peeling herself away from him. As she stood, wrapping the sheet around herself, she could feel his gaze trailing her. She turned, arching a brow. "Are you just going to lie there and stare?" Liam propped himself up on one elbow, unashamed. "Yep." Heat bloomed in her cheeks. "Stop that." He chuckled, eyes darkening. "Not a chance." Mia huffed, grabbing her scattered clothes and heading for the bathroom. This was a mistake, she muttered under her breath. She barely caught Liam's response before shutting the door behind her. You keep saying that, but you stayed. Her fingers tightened around the fabric of her shirt. Damn him. Mia managed to make it to work, but she was distracted the entire day. She replayed the night over and over in her head, the way he touched her, the way he looked at her. It was messing with her in ways she hadn't expected. This wasn't just a casual hookup. Liam was Liam, her best friend, her roommate, the one person who had always been there no matter what. And now everything felt different. She was still deep in thought when her coworker, Amber, nudged her at lunch. You okay? Amber asked, giving her a suspicious look. You're weirdly quiet today. Mia forced a smile. Just tired. Amber smirked. Tired, huh? Or sex-tired? Mia choked on her drink. What? Amber wiggled her eyebrows. Come on, I know that look. Someone got lucky last night. Mia's face burned. You are so inappropriate. Amber gasped, eyes widening. Oh my God, it's true. Who is it? Do I know him? Mia shook her head quickly. Nope. No one. Drop it. Amber pouted, but let it go for now. Mia sighed in relief, but the panic still lingered. If Amber had caught on this fast, how long before everyone else did? And more importantly, how long before they had to decide what this really meant? By the time Mia got home, she was exhausted. She opened the apartment door, fully expecting to find Liam on the couch playing video games or raiding the fridge. Instead, he was in the kitchen making dinner. Her heart did a stupid little flip at the sight of him, barefoot, in sweats, casually tossing something in a pan like he hadn't completely turned her world upside down last night. He looked up, smirking. Welcome back, babe. Mia froze. Babe. Liam grinned, turning off the stove.
What?
Too soon. She crossed her arms. Way too soon. He shrugged, plating the food. You hungry? Mia hesitated, unsure how to navigate this new version of them. But when Liam held out a plate, looking at her like nothing had changed, like they weren't standing on shaky ground, she took it. She sat down beside him at the table, their knees brushing. And just like that, the tension was back. Liam leaned in slightly. So, are we going to pretend last night didn't happen, or? I don't know. Mia cut in quickly. Should we? Liam studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. What do you want, Mia? Her breath hitched. I don't know. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering at her jaw. Liar. Mia swallowed hard. Because he was right. She did know. She just wasn't ready to say it yet. For the next few days, things were strange. Not bad. Not awkward. Just different. Mia and Liam still fell into their usual routines, watching movies together, stealing food from each other's plates, bickering over stupid things like whose turn it was to take out the trash. But underneath it all, there was something charged. Every glance lasted a second too long. Every accidental touch felt deliberate. And neither of them addressed it. Until the night Mia tried to ignore it too hard. You're going on a date? Mia paused mid-lipstick application, glancing at Liam through the mirror. He was leaning against her doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Yeah, she said casually. Why? Liam scoffed.
Why?
Because we just spent the last few nights. He cut himself off, exhaling sharply. You know what? Never mind. Mia turned to face him fully. Liam, we never talked about what this is. And you think going on a date with some random guy is the best way to figure that out? Her stomach twisted. I don't know how to figure it out. Silence. Liam clenched his jaw, running a hand through his hair. Who is he? Mia hesitated. You don't know him. Try me. She sighed.
Ethan.
From work. Liam let out a bitter laugh.
Ethan. Right.
Great guy, I'm sure. She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're running, Mia. Her breath caught. I'm not. Yes, you are, he said, stepping closer. His voice was quieter now, but intense. You're scared, so you're pretending last week never happened. Pretending like we don't both know what this is. Mia's chest ached. Liam. He shook his head, forcing a smirk.
Go on your date, then.
Have fun. Then he walked out, leaving her standing there, breathless and conflicted. The date was a disaster. Ethan was nice, but Mia barely heard a word he said. She checked her phone too many times, forced too many smiles. And when she got home, Liam was waiting. Not in the living room, not in the kitchen, but on the balcony, beer in hand, as if he'd been trying to cool off. He didn't look at her when she stepped outside, but she could feel the tension rolling off him. Mia crossed her arms. Are we going to talk about this? Liam took a slow sip of his beer. How was your date? Horrible. That got his attention. His lips twitched, but he forced indifference. Why? Mia sighed, stepping closer. Because the whole time, I kept thinking about you. Liam stilled. Her heart pounded as she finally said it. Because no matter how hard I try to pretend otherwise, no one else makes me feel like you do. Liam exhaled, setting down his beer. Then stop fighting it, Mia. And just like that, he was there, crowding her against the balcony railing, hands gripping her waist, eyes dark with something unreadable. She gasped as he tilted her chin up, his thumb brushing over her lower lip. Tell me you don't want this, he murmured. Tell me to walk away, and I will. Mia's breath hitched, because she couldn't. Instead, she whispered, I don't want you to walk away. Liam inhaled sharply, then crashed his lips against hers. And just like before, the world blurred around them. Only this time, there was no running. Mia woke up tangled in Liam's sheets again. But this time, she wasn't confused. She wasn't panicking. She knew exactly what had happened. And she knew exactly how she felt. Liam was still asleep beside her, his face relaxed in the early morning light. It was rare to see him this unguarded, without his usual teasing smirk or sarcastic remarks. Her chest ached. Because this, the way she felt, the way she wanted to reach out and trace every inch of him, was terrifying. She had spent so long convincing herself that this was just attraction, just a mistake waiting to happen. But it wasn't. It had never been. She was in love with him. And that realization hit her harder than she expected. The last time she runs. Mia slipped out of bed as quietly as she could, grabbed her clothes, and went straight to the bathroom. She needed air. She needed space. Because if she let herself accept this, accept him, there was no turning back. No safety net. No pretending. It was all or nothing. Her hands trembled as she gripped the sink. She had been running from this moment for years. Could she really stop now? A knock on the door. Mia? Liam's voice was groggy, but alert. She squeezed her eyes shut. Another knock. Mia, open the door. She exhaled sharply, then reached for the handle, opening it just enough to meet his gaze. And when she did, she knew. There was no more running. Because Liam wasn't just some guy she slept with. He was it. The one person who had always been there. The one who knew her better than anyone. And she had almost lost him. Liam studied her, frowning. Are you okay? Mia swallowed hard.
No.
His jaw tightened. Do you regret it? No, she whispered, stepping closer. But I'm scared. Liam exhaled, his hand reaching for hers. Me too. She looked up at him. But we can do this, right? His fingers tightened around hers.
Yeah.
We can. And for the first time, she let herself believe it. A month later, they were still them. Still bickering over takeout. Still stealing the covers at night. Still laughing at stupid jokes. Only now Liam kissed her good morning. Now, Mia curled into him at the end of the day like it was the most natural thing in the world. Now there was no more pretending. They had spent years ignoring what was right in front of them.
But now?
Now they had everything. And they weren't letting go. Thanks for watching. For more stories, please subscribe Eververse Novel.